Brilliant. So today we are going to cut through the noise around ESG. We're going to try and remove the jargon, get out of the theory, and actually figure out what works for real businesses. And we've got the perfect guests to prove it. You'll hear from 4 of us today. As I said, my name is Alex. I'm also joined by Polly, who is our COO and also co-host, and she'll be taking us through some of the framework in the middle section of this presentation. And then we're incredibly lucky to have Leeming and Cath from Filtered. They will introduce themselves as we go through this presentation, and they'll share a little bit of information, but they've got a real honest first-hand experience of doing this for real. So not so much a polished story, but actually the truth of what happens in businesses when you start to prioritise what ESG looks like and get the support and put the framework underneath it. So before we go to any further, we wanted to sort of hear from you. So we've got a couple of questions. You should now see a little QR code pop up on your screen. If you can use your phone and capture that, it should, if technology is going our way, take you to a link where you can log into menti.com. And the question, where in the country world are you dialing in from today, should pop up, which it is, but it's not. There we go. Just took a few seconds to some friendly faces from the South Coast, which is where I am from today. I think Mal and Polly are in London. I'm not sure where Cath is today. Botton-on-Thames. I might spot a friendly face. Amazing. I'll give it another couple of seconds. That's a really nice sort of breadth, and again, we've actually, as an organisation, we have clients across the UK, and it's one of our favourite things to actually get out of the office and go and visit people. We also have clients across the globe, and it's also my favourite thing to go and visit them, but we don't get to do it quite as often. So good to see that we've got a real mix there. Two more questions to go. Just to sort of understand who's in the call, it'd be great to know what size your business is. That's a good sign so far. This is predominantly for SMEs and mid-sized businesses, so I feel like we've kind of hit the right group of people. Fantastic. And then one last question for you. What's your biggest ESG or sustainability challenge right now? And this is a free form, so you can type what you like. It's entirely anonymous. We won't know who's answering what, but it would just be good to get a bit of an understanding about maybe some of the hurdles or the challenges that you see personally or in your business. Yeah, this is all things that we have heard, so you are not alone. Anybody that is time to focus, people's understanding, budget is a really important one, getting data from supply chain, internal buy-in, all things that we will sort of touch on today, but also we also have spoken about all of those things in loads of other places. So we have a host of guides, resources, reports and podcasts as well that you can access entirely for free on our website that sort of touch on pretty much all of those actually, where either we're talking about it or people that will have specificity in what they're doing, either through procurement, through a particular sector, through a particular area within the business that they're looking at it, where you'll be able to get loads more information. So happy to sort of send some of those links out to everybody, but good to know that, yeah, you are absolutely not alone, and a lot of businesses are struggling with all of these problems, which some of us, which we, as I say, we will go through today. So why are we here today to frame it? So as we believe that ESG is essentially currency, but you have to be able to earn it and gain it in order to spend it. And today we want to talk about showing you how to do that. We talk around sustainability a lot about having a very commercial lens as to what we're doing and what's important for a business and how it operates and how it moves forward. And as part of sort of building what sustainability and what ESG looks for your organization, it gives you the opportunity to use it when you're talking to suppliers, when you're talking to stakeholders internally, externally, and to get buy-in. And we, as I say, we're going to hear some great stories from Filtered in a few moments around what that looks like for them. But we've also got a plan of what you can do to help build that into your organization. So for those of you that don't know us very well, just to give a little bit of an introduction, we are FuturePlus. We have been around for about 5 years, and we are essentially a sustainability and ESG reporting solution. We work with predominantly SMEs and mid-sized businesses to help them to be able to understand, measure, manage, improve, and report what sustainability looks like for them. We're going to take you through what we've learned of working through this process with hundreds of businesses in multiple sectors, in multiple countries. But we very much focus on what is practical, what can create progress, what can create impact within a business, and what can actually engage both internal and external stakeholders into moving forward with what that looks like. It doesn't have to be perfection, it doesn't have to be huge goals, but what we're looking for is for businesses to be able to have the confidence and the capability to be able to make incremental improvement and progress over a period of time that feels relevant to them. And much to the question that we just had, why does ESG feel difficult? We get loads of responses. I think some of that came through in that sort of little Mentimeter response there. Unclear where to start, without a clear roadmap, what that looks like. EU regulation popped up. There is an absolute melee of frameworks that businesses can look to or have to go to. There is also a alphabet soup of acronyms and jargon that exists around sustainability. We're like any other industry, unfortunately, that tries to make it as hard as possible to break through. What we're trying to do is very much simplify what that looks like and bring a lot of plain language to sustainability. And we'll go through more about that a little bit more. And also that frequently it feels like extra work for teams. We've seen the way a lot of organizations build sustainability into what they're doing. It's almost like an added on project. You do a thing, you do your job, and then you have sustainability as something entirely different. And that's where we feel like it's probably at its least useful, least valuable, and the hardest thing that you do. And what we're trying to do is to actually embed sustainable decision making into every job within a business, so that what you're not doing is retrofitting, but what you're doing is you're making more or having more sustainable actions as you roll through that process. It makes it so much easier. It makes it feel like something that should happen within a business, much like operational and financial decision making. And by embedding that into what you do, suddenly, instead of trying to sort of crawl together data around sustainability, what you actually have is a sustainable business that you can start to communicate and report about and engage with people on. So we'll be going through that today. So what we hope you will leave with, as I say, we've got Polly to go through the framework and Mal and Cath to go through what it looks like for them. But a simple way to think about ESG, we're going to be breaking it down into something very simple to use, how you can get started, what that would look like, and the steps that you need to go through. What good looks like, so maybe not going for perfection, but actually understanding where you want to get to as a business and what timeframes look like and what materiality or importance to your business and how to work that out. And then a very practical next step. So we're really big on roadmaps and progress and what happens next, and what we'll leave you with is something to go out and have a look at and see where you can move forward to. We do break down sustainability into simple framework. We talked about understand, measure, manage, plan and improve, but we also, to break it down even simpler, is assess, plan, improve, and report. We built a tech platform that enables you to do this, but it's also absolutely possible if you take this sort of process to embed it into your business and just to get started. Assessing is probably one of the most important things that you can do. We find frequently that people jump to trying to improve without understanding why they're doing it or what they're doing it for. So understanding where you are and baselining what is important to you, planning what that looks like in terms of impact, time, commitment, budget, and making sure that you have the buy-in, then using that information to make those actions, embed sustainability into what you're doing and improve. And then what that aims to do is to give you the confidence to then communicate and report your actions, whether that be with talking to your board, whether that be when that ESG section of the tender lands on your desk, rather than sort of panicking that there was a spreadsheet from 2021 that someone once filled in, actually having the knowledge and the data and the guidance in what it is that you want to say and how you want to say it as a business. So on that note, I will hand over to Mal and Cath. I think Mal is going to go first, who's going to explain a little bit more about Filtered, what they do, who they are, and how they've embedded sustainability into what they do, all for the benefit of improvement and progress. Mal.
Well, hello. Hi, Alex. Hopefully you can all hear me loud and clear. I'm actually at the Learning Technologies Conference at the XL today. So it's pretty busy. There's decades of thousands of people showing off products and services that I'd say similar to ours, but obviously not as good. We're a very fast-growing company that sits within the L&D, I suppose, ecosystem. So what do we do? Well, we sit as an infrastructure between skills. So if you think of some of our clients like EY, they've got 35,000 discrete skills within that company. Those skills require training and content, and we will match that training and content to content using our AI engine so that it's relevant, up-to-date, compliant, and it helps businesses build governance into knowledge management. So it's a very, very simple way to explain a really complex and compounding problem that exists. So we provide services to the likes of National Westminster Bank, more recently and more latterly, and actually one of the reasons we engaged with FuturePlus is a government account. So HMRC's Tax Academy will be powered by Filtered technologies. And we're a very fast growing company that's embracing a lot of the new AI technologies. So a couple of things we might want to answer questions on is, how do we handle that within the workforce? And so, think about the softer pieces around people's fear of that and in respect for their jobs. And as I said, we're scaling very rapidly with a set of global clients, which I'm very proud of. So that's Filtered. So why does it matter to us? So it's not just sustainability. Sustainability to me matters in two ways. One is, as a business, we want to be a sustainable business, not just for the reasons that it saves us energy and things like that. We're not a big company. We don't run a huge fleet. We haven't got offices. We have a work from home policy. But on a moral level, and as a father, I want to know that we're doing the right thing for the generations that come after. So that matters to me. So in our supply chain choices, sustainability matters. We're trying to pick AI and data center providers that have got the same sort of set of values to us. But where it got really important was around the S and the G. So where we were thinking about social contracts and governance. If you think of those two metrics as a CEO of a business, social contract helps us win contracts with the UK government. You've got to have a good social contract, but you've got to be able to prove it. You can't just say it. It can't be vaporware. And then governance helps us with investment and the potential to do business. People want to do business with folks who are a safe pair of hands, so well governed, EBITDA positive, got the financials straight, stable workforce, good mix of people in the board, in a functional board as well, like Filtered. So all of those things are, particularly build responsibly and talent expects it. They're two real key things for me that stand out on that slide. So I think we're over to Cath, right? So,
yep.
Yeah.
Hi. I didn't get my answer in quick enough. I'm in Hertfordshire. That's where I am today. So hello to everybody. I've been with Filter for the last 3.5 years, and when Mel suggested we look into ESG as a company, to be honest, I was a little bit overwhelmed. I am part-time and I don't have a lot of time to add on extra things to my plate. So I was a little bit worried about what this is going to look like. And we weren't starting from scratch. We had a lot of stuff already in place. It just was all over the place as a business. Notion documents, Google Docs, sort of everywhere. So I wasn't quite sure what we were going to do to make this work. But Mel suggested FuturePlus, and from my side, it was really, really easy to use and sort of put me at ease when I started the process and met with the team. It really allowed me to, from a time point of view, to sort of dip in and out when I needed the time to work on small bits and pieces, or when I had more time, I could work on a bigger part of it. So I didn't have to sort of change my week or change how I was doing things, but it allowed me to sort of get an overall picture of what really mattered to us, and try and figure out what we wanted to do going forward. Go to the next slide. So the sort of main turning point for us was the structure of the FuturePlus platform. It took something that was sort of very abstract in my mind and put it into something very practical to work with. It gave us a very clear framework. I knew what I needed to focus on. It took a lot of the sort of guesswork away from me. And it sort of changed my mind shift, really. So I wasn't really panicking anymore, and I knew what to focus on, which was really great. But it also gave me that sort of accountability, me and the company. So it was, ESG was always been something that we should look at this at some point. We should do this at some point. We should put this policy in place at some point. But it actually became something we all owned as a team. The great thing was I had a lot of support along the way as well. The FuturePlus team was really amazing. A few times I didn't really do something properly, or I hadn't completed a tick box here and there, and the team would send me a message and say, oh, have you forgotten this? Or just double check this one, attach this one, you sent me a link that didn't work. We all make mistakes and we're all busy. So I felt like I had sort of a team behind me supporting me through that process. And the sort of main thing is I really feel like it has become something we use now as a company. We've set aspirations. We're not perfect. We don't have a perfect score. There are areas that we definitely need to improve on. But what we've done is we've had sort of a plan put in place for us with accountability over the next 12 months. Some are a little bit longer because they're going to take us some time to sort things out. But I have sort of a clear plan of what we're doing. So it's become a sort of a living and breathing product within our team. Alex, you still mute.
Yeah. So someone was going to do it, and it was likely to be me. But I was just going to say thank you for being quite open and with your candor about, sustainability isn't necessarily the easiest thing to get hold of if nobody's necessarily got that job title within an organization. And we see this a lot, that people have sort of multiple hats when they're doing this sort of role, and having the ability to put structure around it. We tend to find that, as you say, it gives you the opportunity to make those small steps and to have that confidence to move forward. So thank you ever so much for being incredibly open around what that is. And Mal, I don't think you could have explained it better, actually being in a place where you're having conversations where ESG and sustainability is coming up in those procurement conversations in order to be able to make the sales and do all of, scale rapidly, as you put it, which is what we all hope for. So thank you ever so much. We do have one more quick question for everybody, if you can go back onto your Menti. So following that, and that awareness of there isn't always a lot of time that you need to engage people within your team, we'd love to know who has responsibility for ESG in your organisation. Is it everyone, no one, someone? We've seen it sit across multiple departments: health and safety, marketing, COOs, CMOs, people directors, operations. So yeah, really interesting to see what you guys come back with. Lots of senior roles there. We don't have one person on it, so progress is always delayed by everyone's opinions and busy schedules. Yes. democracy is an absolutely wonderful thing of getting people involved in decision making around sustainability, but it may have the small side effect of allowing everyone to have an opinion, which takes a long time to get to an end result. So sometimes knowing what is most material for your organization is a really good way to be able to cut through a lot of the noise. It's not only important to know what it is that you are doing, it's also important to know what you're not doing, and if you're not going to do it, why. It's something that can really help move conversations along. This isn't our priority now. This is where we're going to put the energy and the focus that we have and the resources that we have. But this is something that we're going to be doing in the future, and that's very much key in building out that roadmap. But I don't want to steal too much of what Polly's going to talk about, because we're absolutely going to talk about what very practical ways of building the knowledge to know what to do next. Should be everyone. Absolutely. Yeah, getting everybody in a business to understand what sustainability means within their role is absolutely key. I would say that what you also need is very much support from top down. It has to be seen as important. One of the reasons why it works so well for Filtered is that Mal and the board absolutely know that they want to improve what they're doing, run a responsible business, and also, benefit from the commercial lens of doing that, of having those conversations with procurement. So by having that support top down is vitally important. Polly, I will hand over to you.
Thank you very much. And thank you everyone for your time. I'm Polly, I'm COO at FuturePlus, and so I've spent my career in operations and logistics roles and project management roles, so I always come at everything from a very practical standpoint and try and really think through exactly how you get from A to B. So this section of the presentation is hopefully going to give you some ideas around that and bring everything to life and make everything as practical as we can. So ESG is obviously environment, social and governance. We actually break that down into 5 themes, which you can see here. So we look at climate and environment separately. Very purposefully, climate is your carbon footprint, your GHG emissions. Environment is sort of everything else, water, waste, your impact on nature and biodiversity. So we've separated those 2 out. Social impact might be anything from human rights or employee well-being. We look at diversity inclusion very separately within the 5 themes, so that is given the space to have its own section within our ESG framework. And then economic, this is often kind of slightly overlooked, which I always find quite extraordinary, because if you don't have a business that is economically sustainable, you don't have a business at all. And for us, governance sits very firmly within each of those 5 themes. So we always start by looking at the governance structures within each of those and how that trickles down within each of the 5 areas. And I think what's really important to understand is how important it is to think of these 5 things together. We've worked with organisations that are so focused on their carbon footprint, or so focused on, kind of more traditional CSR, sort of volunteering type initiatives within social impact. Both of those things are fantastic, don't get me wrong. But if you don't start to look at the interconnected nature between these 5 areas, it's going to be very difficult to push your sustainability initiatives forward. And I'm sure a lot of you have experienced this. We call it the green bean conundrum, but it's a really good example of how there are always compromises in pretty much every sustainability situation. So green bean conundrum, let's imagine that you are a restaurant based in London and you want to buy green beans for your restaurant. You have a couple of options. Probably you could get your green beans from Kenya, from an amazing farming cooperative and have, you know, a really brilliant social impact. Or perhaps you could get your green beans from an organic farm in Kent. Obviously, if you're getting your green beans from Kenya, the carbon footprint is going to be much bigger than if you're getting them locally. So you're thinking there, immediately you can start to see the environmental and social trade-offs starting to come into play. And of course, then there's a third layer on top of that, which is the economic impact. How much are those green beans? So in that sort of triangle, in this example of climate, social and economic, how are you going to work out which is the best option for your business? And that's what we're going to try and unpack a little bit today, but just really important to bear in mind that if you find yourself wondering about these things and coming up across these problems in sustainability, that is absolutely normal. There is never a right or wrong answer, and you have to try and find your way through that in the best way for your business. Next slide, please, Alex. So, as Alex said, we've worked with hundreds of businesses over the past 5 years. We've been through this process lots of times, and what we've found time and time again is that people, businesses that feel like they haven't made a start with sustainability actually have. They just perhaps aren't looking in the right places or are not sure what to look for. I think when people hear the word data, they immediately think about, you know, carbon emissions calculations or, you know, water data, waste data. We think of data very differently. We think of, you know, qualitative data and quantitative data. It can be something as simple as you have a particular policy in your organization. Has that policy been shared publicly? How many people have been trained on that policy? And then how are you measuring the outcomes? What is the qualitative evidence that you can start to gather around that? So I'd really encourage you not just to understand how scattered sustainability data can be and how you can start drawing that in, but also what that data can actually look like. And it's kind of less scary than it seems, I think. It's not just necessarily lots of complicated spreadsheets. You can get that evidence and that data from lots of different places. Just a little plug here for our podcast, The Business of Sustainability. If you search Business of Sustainability FuturePlus podcast, I'd really encourage you to head to episode 25, which is called Bid Ready. It talks about ESG evidence and data and the importance of gathering that all in one place so that you are in a really good position to respond to bids and tenders. It's a great episode, and it goes into a lot more depth about how you can start to gather that evidence together. Thanks, Alex. Next slide. So working through this framework, we'd really encourage you to sort of change your mindset about ESG. I was sitting with a business the other day that we've been working with, and a fantastic business. The owner has been doing a lot of great work. She's taken on sustainability for the first time. She's been working with us and hopefully has learned a huge amount. But I was trying to encourage her to talk about all of this great work, perhaps by putting a page on her website. And she said to me, "I will talk about it when I'm finished." And I just wanted to highlight that because I think a lot of people perhaps feel that they just need to do the next thing. They just need to get to a certain point before they have the confidence to talk about sustainability work. But I would really encourage you to change that mindset. Even if you have just taken a few small actions or you're just starting out, the fact that you have the intention to look at your impact, understand what it is, and set some targets to improve it in the way that Cath described earlier is a fantastic starting point and already puts you ahead of the curve. So from kind of getting started to being on that journey, it can feel a lot less overwhelming if you're just prepared to be honest about where your business sits within those 5 themes and have the confidence to talk about it in a different way. So I'm just going to whiz quickly through these next 2 slides, but we've sort of covered this already with some of the things that Filtered have said and some of the things Alex has run through. Problems we tend to see, no time, and you guys have also identified these. Too many priorities, no clear starting point, no clear ownership. They're things that we see time and time again. And overcoming them is the first step. So what helps? Clear priorities, faster decisions, accountability, and avoided wasted effort. All of these things feel really obvious. I know it's really difficult when you're trying to juggle where to start and where to prioritise. But I think the key here is to focus down as narrowly as you can on what matters the most. Especially in a small team where you've got you're juggling multiple roles, this is really the starting point. And if we move on to the next slide. Yeah, so defining the goal. You're much likely to get better outcomes if you think about this really practically. So sustainability policies, intentions are no good if they're or in a file on your computer. They need to be practical, they need to be operational, they need to be commercial. So it's really important that we focus on that. So if there's one thing that I'd love you to take away from this session, it is to get started with a materiality matrix. And we are going to send you a couple of tools after the webinar finishes. The first one is a free-to-use tool called Future Insights, where you can just enter 10 seconds of information, just your company size and your sector and where you are in the world. And it will give you some ideas. It's by no means a complete sustainability strategy, but it will just get the cogs turning and give you some ideas about what are the most likely ESG topics that will have the biggest impact for you to focus on. The second thing we're going to send you is a version of this matrix that you can play around with and fill in as well. So don't worry about trying to kind of write down what this looks like. We're going to send you a version that you can have a play around with, because what I would really love is for you to go away from this and be able to start plugging things in and seeing where you may have the highest impact in the areas that have the most importance to your stakeholders. So just to run through how this matrix works. Now, materiality is just an ESG word for the things that are important. It's become part of the kind of CSRD lingo, where people talk about double materiality assessments, but it's really just trying to figure out what's important and where to start. That's the most important thing. So you can see on the vertical axis, we've got importance to stakeholders, and then on the horizontal axis, impact on the business. So what does this mean? So I would encourage you, when you're thinking about importance to stakeholders, to choose just one group of stakeholders. Otherwise, this can quickly become overwhelming. So where are you seeing the most pressure coming from at the moment? Is it from your board? Is it from your customers? Is it because you have got tender documents piling up on your desk that all have ESG sections? Is it from regulators? Are you hitting ESG regulation and you don't know where to start? Is it is it nature? Is that your biggest stakeholder? Are you concerned? At Mal, that was what you mentioned first, that you felt a real ethical obligation to think about this. But there are commercial and non-commercial stakeholders and reasons to look at all of this. And then impact on your business. So how are these areas that you choose to focus on going to impact your business? That might be financial performance, that might be your reputation as a business, that might be operational efficiency. So putting these two things together will start to give you an idea of where to focus. So if you just go on to the next slide, Alex, what this allows you to do is start to plot different topics in the matrix. And as I said, don't worry, because we're going to send you a really easy to use tool that will run you through all of this. But let's say you decide that the stakeholders that you really want to focus on are your employees. They're the group of stakeholders that are really pushing you to take action on sustainability. The topics that you might expect to see in a high importance, high impact quadrant might be things like employee well-being, fair pay, working hours, that kind of thing. Anything that sits in low importance, low impact, I would encourage you not to think about it. At the moment. That's not to say you never will, but you need to really, if you're stretched and you don't know where to start, you need to hone in on that top quadrant. Another example might be your customers. So if it's your customers that are really providing feedback and saying, we want you to be more sustainable as a company, you might think about things like GHG emissions, modern slavery statements, and perhaps product safety, for example. They might be the kind of things you will see in that top quadrant. So it's a really, really useful tool to just help you to narrow down your thinking. There's no point spending time, money, resource, energy on things that are going to be low impact or low importance. So yeah, I hope that's a really helpful, practical approach to making a start with the framework. Over to you, Alex.
Thank you, Polly. And it's really sound advice, so of being able to know where to start. And we've covered, I'm going to go through these really quickly. I'm aware of everybody's time and the time of day, but ESG genuinely has a business value. Sometimes it's a really obvious sort of reducing costs, very classic sustainability, reducing your energy usage, reducing your waste. It's a very easy way to look at it, and it's very obvious, and you can put it in very quantitative terms. What I will say is there also is a submerged value around ESG. There is winning contracts, there is attracting talent, particularly people coming into the workforce now. Younger people are wanting to know, does this align with what I want to do, and how do I feel about working for this organisation? And it builds trust. It builds trust with your board, it builds trust with your investors, it builds trust with your external stakeholders and your internal stakeholders, because if you can confidently communicate what it is that you are doing across environment, social governance, and climate, environment, social, economic, and inclusion, it means that you've understood what you're doing as a business, you've looked at it in terms of risk, you've started working on what's most important to make you as responsible and resilient as you can be into the future. And that is absolute gold dust. Being able to formalize and professionalize what you're doing within the business through that lens will put you in a better position no matter what it is that you're coming to do, whether it's talking about it, whether it's going towards the regulation, whether it's trying to understand what that's resilience looks like for your business over a period of years. It's a vital way for you to kind of get there over that process, and it can be done incrementally, and it should be done incrementally is the other important thing. You should be doing what you can do at what point. And as Polly said, there is no finish line with sustainability. Unfortunately, innovation, technology, expectation, regulation is a constantly moving finish line. Which makes it exciting, because sometimes it comes back and forwards, sometimes it moves entirely, and sometimes it turns from a finish line into a long jump. But it's really important to have those processes in place so that you're not shocked by it and it doesn't cause you and your organisation problems. So preparing for it and looking into the future is really key. So as Polly said, start with where you're going to have the most impact, not just, both outside of the business, but also what is going to be the most impactful within the business. Reconsider what you look at as data. Every policy, every event that you host, what is it that you're looking for, and how can it be impactful, and how can that, feed back into your ESG? Consider it within risk. The unknown unknowns are the most dangerous. That's why it's really important to work with experts, people that know what they're doing, but actually starting to know, I know that I need to do this, I'm doing it, and I can evidence it. Thank you, Juan. And I agree with Polly far too much of the time as well. She is, an absolute genius around a lot of this stuff and making it really simple. But understanding your unknown unknowns, I know that I'm doing this and I can evidence and verify it. I know that I'm not doing this, but I've got a plan to, and I'm not doing this, but I'm aware that why I'm not doing it is really important as part of that risk profile. And then look for the opportunities. It opens up conversations. It can improve the ability to sell. It can improve the ability to gain investment. Once again, it might not be the singular thing that makes it a no to a yes, but I can absolutely assure you that if you have those conversations with people and you can show that maturity in your processes, it will be easier to have those conversations in the long run. So you want to prioritize smartly, as Polly said, look at that materiality matrix. You want to have a certain amount of quick wins to create momentum and cadence to get buy-in. They may have sort of small but fast impact, but you also want to have those longer strategic projects that you're looking at that will create that over a period of time and allow you to scale. Having a balance between the two is really important, because if everything is in 1 to 3 years, it's really hard to keep that momentum and that engagement up. But if everything is quick wins, it doesn't necessarily feel like you're moving the needle on the big stuff that may be particularly impactful. So take a look at that materiality matrix, work out where you are, and then get a good mix of things that allow you to feel like you are winning and that you are moving forward and that progress is happening. What we have seen that lead to, going through it again, better client conversations, clearer ownership internally. Everybody can be responsible and accountable for sustainability and ESG within their particular job role. It's also really important, as I say, to have somebody in senior leadership that also takes ownership and accountability to make it important, because whatever is important to them will become important to the people that are working with them. It gives you stronger positioning. It's easier to communicate and be confident about it. It's very hard to stumble over your words. If you're trying to put bad data into good language, that's where we start to get issues around greenwashing. Not necessarily lying, just a good intent that's sort of misconstrued because you're trying to do something better. Just take that issue out of the way by actually doing the work and being honest about it, and that gives you that confidence. And if you don't communicate it, as Polly said, again with her example with a client recently, you will lose opportunities to do it. So be proud about what it is that you are doing and be honest and transparent about what you aren't doing and why you aren't doing it, which leads to the golden rule of being honest and not perfect. So share progress, share challenges, use the real data that you have and avoid overclaiming. But also, much to the point at that bottom, that credibility matters far more than perfection. You will make mistakes. There may possibly be failures. It is the nature of the beast when trying something new within a business. You can look out into the world, you can speak to people like us, and sustainability experts and your peers around things that they've done that have worked for them that will allow you not to start from the very beginning and give you that foot up, because there's no need to start from the beginning on any of this. But every company has its own nuances, its own culture and its own specific ways, and you'll have to find out what works for you. So acknowledge anything that hasn't worked well and make sure you change it up, you've measured it, you've understood it, and you start doing it differently. But also celebrate the successes as well, about what that looks like, and interrogate both. Both are really important. Why did it fail and why was it successful? Both really, really vital questions to ask yourself and the team as you go through this process. So key takeaways, and I think we've almost exactly stuck to, well, just a little bit over our time, so I'll keep it very short. But key takeaways: you aren't starting from zero. You will have data. There will be people that are thinking about this, and there will be a requirement from it. So really take where you are and start to really compile what that looks like and start making progress forward. Focus on what matters most for you and for your business in order to make impact, and really decide where it is that you want to be in the future and what that looks like and how you can get there in a very ambitious but also a very achievable way, because that's absolutely key. It's got to be achievable and it's got to keep people engaged. And always remember that progress is always better than perfection. Perfection is very difficult, it's very hard, it's really difficult to stay engaged, but actually if you have progress and you take people along on that journey, you will be able to build what this looks like and start to be able to recognise what everybody's roles look like for sustainability within your organisation. So on that note, we would suggest that you use the framework. FuturePlus exists. We'd love to talk to you. We're really friendly, I absolutely promise. But there are other ways, and you can build a framework by using the materiality matrix that we're going to send out if you want to just get started on that journey. Build momentum. It's really important to have a cadence to things. Don't let it drop. It's not another thing to do. It's not another project. It's what can I do as part of my role, and what is the decisions that I can start making that will lead us to a better outcome. Consistency is my word of the year. Consistency builds discipline. It's really important. Focus on what matters. Take a look at that materiality matrix. And then lastly, I just wanted to thank everybody for being part of this conversation, for joining us today, for commenting, and it would be absolutely delightful to hear if you've got any questions. We've got a few minutes now for those that are happy to stay, and if not, please get in contact, and we would love to continue the conversation with you. So thank you ever so much to Mal and to Cath and to Polly for joining me today, and I open it up to the floor.